In the heart of the Wild West, where the sky stretched endlessly and the land was as rugged as it was beautiful, there lived a cattle baron named Thomas Granger. He ruled over his sprawling ranch with a steadfast hand, managing vast herds of cattle that grazed across the golden plains. The sun often set behind the distant mountains, casting a warm glow over his land, making it a picture of prosperity and strength. Thomas was not just a baron, he was a man of high expectations and traditional values, particularly when it came to matters of the heart. For years, he cherished letters from his childhood friend, Annabelle. They were filled with promises of love and dreams of a life together. As teenagers, they had exchanged words that spoke of a soft-spoken, compliant partner who would fit perfectly into his structured world. Thomas envisioned Annabelle as demure and gentle, someone who would take to ranch life gracefully and support him in every endeavor. With each letter he received from her, his anticipation grew, shaping an ideal image in his mind, a picture of harmony that he believed would soon come to life. However, beneath the bright skies and tranquil landscape lay an unyielding reality that would challenge everything Thomas thought he knew. As he prepared for Annabelle's arrival, hanging garlands on the porch and polishing his best saddle, his heart raced with excitement. He dreamt of their future together, quiet evenings on the porch, whispering sweet nothings under the stars while crickets serenaded them. When the day finally came, Thomas stood at the ranch gate waiting for her carriage to roll into view. His heart thudded with anticipation as dust kicked up in the distance. But when the carriage finally arrived, it wasn't just Annabelle stepping out, it was a whirlwind of energy dressed in rugged clothing and tall riding boots. Her hair danced in the wind like wild grass as she dismounted her horse with ease, bareback, a sight that stunned him speechless. "Thomas," she called out with a bold grin that lit up her face. This was not the timid girl he had envisioned, but rather a fierce woman who held herself with confidence and spirit. As she approached him without hesitation, he felt both excitement and confusion swirling inside him. "Hello," she said playfully, adjusting her hat as though she owned the place. His expectations shattered like glass around him. This unexpected encounter forced Thomas to confront his beliefs about love and partnership. The woman standing before him seemed ready to tame more than just cattle. She appeared set to challenge everything he thought about their future together, and perhaps even about himself. As the dust from the approaching carriage settled, Thomas stood at the ranch gate, his heart pounding in anticipation. The landscape around him felt alive, the flowers swayed gently, and even the cattle paused in their grazing as if sensing a momentous change was about to unfold. When the carriage door swung open, Thomas leaned forward, ready to greet the woman he had imagined for so long. Instead of stepping out with a dainty grace, Annabelle burst forth like a storm. She emerged clad in rugged attire that spoke of adventure. Fitted trousers and a sturdy shirt accented with leather gloves. Her hair flowed freely, catching the breeze as she confidently jumped down from the kick plate of the cart. Without hesitation, she strode over toward him, her boots crunching on the gravel with each purposeful step. Gone were any traces of gentility. Instead stood a woman full of spirit and vitality. "Thomas!" she called out with an infectious grin that seemed to brighten even the sun above. Her voice was clear and strong, cutting through any imagined softness Thomas had expected. He blinked in surprise as she approached him without any hint of reservation, moving like someone who belonged in this rough terrain. "Hello," she said playfully, tilting her chin up slightly as though claiming her space. There was nothing timid about her demeanor, she radiated confidence and capability. Meanwhile, Thomas felt rooted to the spot, a mixture of admiration and bewilderment washed over him. Annabelle walked right past him towards the horses tied nearby, giving them an assessing glance before expertly mounting one without any sign of hesitation. It was bareback, a skill that took practice and bravery. Thomas's mouth opened slightly as he watched her ride gracefully around the paddock. It was like witnessing poetry in motion. She commanded attention effortlessly while he struggled to grasp what had just unfolded before him. "Can you keep up?" she called out teasingly over her shoulder as she guided the horse into a gallop. A laugh tumbled from her lips, a sound filled with freedom that echoed across the open land. In that moment, all his expectations fractured. He realized he wasn't just captivated by her beauty but by an energy that was wholly foreign to him. Thomas frowned slightly, grappling with his feelings. This woman defied every notion he held about how a bride should act or dress. She shattered his fantasies like glass underfoot. Yet somehow, amidst all this uncertainty and chaos blooming inside him, he felt drawn closer. A pull towards this vibrant creature who seemed ready to tame not just cattle, but also his heart. The sun cast long shadows across the ranch as Thomas watched Annabelle gallop gracefully around the paddock, her laughter echoing off the distant hills. With each lap, she seemed to come alive more, showcasing not just her riding skills, but a spirit that was undeniably free. He leaned against the wooden fence, torn between admiration and disbelief. This was a woman who clearly thrived in the open air, fully in command of herself and her surroundings. "Want to give it a try?" Annabelle called out, her voice ringing with playful challenge. Thomas hesitated for just a moment before climbing into the saddle of his own horse. While he was an experienced rider, he had never thought to measure himself against anyone other than his foreman. But as he positioned himself beside her, he felt a strange mix of competition and camaraderie. "Let's see what you've got," she urged, flashing him a grin before spurring her horse forward. With a quick kick and a gentle pull of the reins, she shot ahead like an arrow loosed from its bow. Thomas couldn't help but chase after her, adrenaline coursing through him as they raced across the open fields. After several thrilling laps, they came to a stop near an old barn where Thomas kept his shooting targets. He took a deep breath, wiping sweat from his brow. "You're quite the rider," he admitted, still surprised at how easily she commanded both horse and land. Annabelle laughed lightly. "Riding is just one of my many talents," she said with a wink. Then she walked over to where Thomas had set up his targets, picking up a rifle that lay propped against the barn wall. "Care to see how I shoot?" she asked confidently, and before he could respond, she raised the rifle with practiced ease. Thomas stood in awe as she aimed carefully and fired a shot. A perfect bullseye hit echoed through the air. She turned back to him with a triumphant smile, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Impressive," he exclaimed, unable to hide his admiration any longer. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" "A little practice at home," Annabelle replied casually, setting down the rifle and looking at him with a hint of mischief. "And some time spent dodging city suitors who didn't appreciate my adventurous spirit." Again, Thomas felt the familiar twist in his heart, a mixture of appreciation for her skills and frustration at how far removed this woman was from the docile partner he had imagined. Annabelle's confident nature was magnetic. It beckoned him to embrace something bolder than mere tradition. As they stood side by the targets, their laughter floating in the warm breeze, Thomas realized he was facing an important decision. Would he choose compliance or dare to embrace this new world that Annabelle represented? The answer stirred within him, one that promised an exciting life alongside this remarkable woman who had shattered all his preconceived notions about love and partnership. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Thomas and Annabelle sat on the porch of the ranch house, their earlier exuberance giving way to a more contemplative mood. The cool evening breeze whispered through the trees, and a sense of calm enveloped them. After their thrilling afternoon, an unspoken question hung in the air between them, waiting for the right moment to emerge. Thomas glanced sideways at Annabelle, who was absently tracing patterns in the wooden railing with her finger. He felt a sudden urge to understand the woman sitting beside him more deeply. "You're not at all what I expected," he began cautiously. I knew you were spirited, but this," he gestured toward the open land, "this is something else entirely." She looked up at him, her expression shifting from playful to serious. "I've never been one for expectations, Thomas," she replied softly, her eyes reflecting a flicker of vulnerability. "Not from others or even myself." "What do you mean?" he asked, genuinely curious. Annabelle took a deep breath, as if gathering her thoughts like a storm cloud before a downpour. "When we were young, I felt pressure to be someone I wasn't," she confessed. "I wrote those letters to you as a way to escape my reality. I forged a gentle image because it was what everyone wanted to see, a demure lady who would marry well and settle down." Thomas's brow furrowed as he listened intently. "But why?" "Because city suitors didn't want a woman who loved adventure or had dreams beyond their expectations," she explained, her voice growing firmer. "They saw me as just another pretty face in a crowd, a trophy rather than a partner." She paused, looking out at the fields that stretched endlessly before them. "So I decided to become whoever they wanted me to be just long enough to escape." Her confession struck Thomas like a bolt of lightning. He felt his heart race as he processed her words. "You forged your own identity?" he asked, astonished. "I did," she admitted with a nod. "But I realized that living behind that mask was suffocating me. When I learned that I could ride and shoot and be wild without fear of judgment, I finally began to feel free." Thomas searched her face for any signs of regret but found none, only determination and courage shining through her expressive eyes. The woman before him was no longer just Annabelle from his childhood letters. She was vibrant and real. "I admire your bravery," he said earnestly, feeling an overwhelming pull toward her spirit. "You chose authenticity over compliance." Annabelle smiled softly at his words, and in that moment, Thomas understood that his heart had already made its choice. It longed for this fearless woman who had shattered his expectations and dared him to embrace life with passion and courage. As the days unfolded since Annabelle's arrival, Thomas found himself in a constant battle within his mind and heart. Each morning, he woke to the sight of her confidently riding through the paddocks or effortlessly handling the ranch's tasks, her laughter mingling with the sounds of nature. Every time he watched her, a sense of admiration blossomed in him, but it was quickly tangled with a sense of unease. He recalled the dreams he had as a young man, visions of a gentle partner who would fit neatly into the life he had constructed on his ranch. Society had painted a picture of how a wife should behave, poised, compliant, and ready to support her husband without striving for her own notoriety. Annabelle's fearless spirit shattered that ideal, and while he felt exhilarated by her courage, it also terrified him. One evening, as dusk settled over the land in a blanket of deep colors, Thomas sat alone on the porch, his mind racing. His friends often complimented him on his wealth and achievements. Their nods of approval seemed to suggest that marrying someone like Annabelle would come with whispers behind closed doors. Would they see her for who she really was, a partner forged in adventure, or simply a wild, unruly woman out of place in his world? At that moment, he spotted Annabelle approaching him with muddy boots and a bright smile after tending to the horses. She reminded him of everything beautiful about breaking free from societal norms, yet represented everything that made him feel vulnerable. He admired her bravery but was hesitant to accept that such boldness could be part of his life. "Are you okay?" she asked gently when she saw the conflicted look on his face. Her intuitive nature pulled at something deep inside him. Thomas hesitated before speaking. "I'm just thinking." He didn't want to burden her with his internal struggle over societal expectations versus personal truth. "Thinking is good," she replied with encouragement in her voice, leaning against the porch railing beside him. "It means you're grappling with something real." But grappling was precisely what weighed on him most. Could he truly embrace a relationship that challenged not only their lives but also the rigid perceptions held by others? His heart yearned for her courage and confident spirit. It called out to join her in living authentically. As they sat together under the vast expanse of stars blazing across the night sky, Thomas's heart began to break free from its restraints. He understood that love shouldn't be confined by society's expectations but instead should be guided by connection and respect for one another's desires and dreams. As much as Thomas cared about appearances and reputation, deep within him echoed a new truth, the growing belief that perhaps it was time to choose courage over compliance. The choice lay with him now. Would he step boldly into this new reality alongside Annabelle or retreat into safety? The moment felt pivotal, one where courage whispered more sweetly than compliance ever could. As the days turned into weeks, Thomas and Annabelle settled into a comfortable rhythm on the ranch, finding joy in their shared tasks and moments of laughter. One sunny afternoon, they decided to work together to mend a fence that had seen better days. As they pulled on gloves and gathered tools, Annabelle's enthusiasm was infectious. "I bet you can't keep up with me on this," she teased, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Thomas smirked, accepting the challenge with a playful nod. They worked side by side, joking about their competing skills as they hammered nails and stretched wire. With each shared laugh and playful jab, Thomas felt the barriers he had built around his heart begin to crumble. "Let's see who can finish first," Annabelle declared, her determination shining through as she raced to secure her section of the fence. Thomas chuckled at her spirited nature, realizing how much he admired her ability to tackle challenges head-on. Later that evening, they sat around a crackling campfire under a canopy of stars. The warmth from the flames flickered against their faces as they shared stories from their childhood, Annabelle recounting tales of escapades in the city and Thomas reminiscing about his adventures on the ranch. Each story revealed more about who they were beyond the surface. "Did I ever tell you about the time I tried to catch a wild stallion?" Thomas laughed as he recalled the incident where he ended up in a muddy ditch. Annabelle burst into laughter, her joy echoing into the night air. "You? A cattle baron stuck in mud? That's rich." Their laughter danced around them like fireflies in the dark, creating an atmosphere filled with warmth and understanding. For every tale Thomas shared, Annabelle had one of her own, each revealing their dreams, fears, and aspirations. They discovered that despite their different backgrounds, they both yearned for adventure and authenticity. As they finished their meal under the stars, Annabelle turned serious for a moment. "I'm glad we're getting to know each other better," she said softly. "I don't want you to think I'm just some wild woman who doesn't belong here." Thomas looked at her intently, wishing to reassure her. "You belong here more than anyone I've ever known," he said earnestly. "You're not just a part of my life, you inspire me to be better." Their eyes locked for a moment, filled with unspoken emotions, before Annabelle broke into another smile, one that lit up his heart like the glowing embers before them. In those moments of connection, through laughter, shared tasks, and deeper conversations, they began building a bond that transcended societal expectations. From sunrise to sunset, each interaction drew them closer together. They were no longer just a baron and his bride, but partners navigating both the challenges of ranch life and the complexities of love. Thomas realized that with each passing day spent alongside Annabelle, his admiration for her grew stronger, not just for her adventurous spirit, but for how she inspired him to embrace courage over compliance in every aspect of his life. As Thomas and Annabelle settled into their life together, word of their unconventional union spread throughout the surrounding community. The ranch's neighbors and Thomas's friends began to gather at the local saloon, exchanging opinions and gossip about the baron's bold bride. Reactions varied significantly, reflecting the deep-seated beliefs and traditions of the Wild West. One afternoon, Thomas found himself in a lively conversation with a few of his closest friends at the saloon. They leaned against the polished bar, mugs of beer in hand, when one of them, Jake, raised an eyebrow and smirked. "So, Granger, how's your wild woman doing? I hear she rides like a man and shoots better than half of us." Thomas chuckled but felt a twinge of defensiveness. She's not just a wild woman, Jake. Annabelle is capable and strong more than anyone I've ever met. Sure, but what will folks say? Another friend chimed in with a frown. A cattle baron married to a woman who doesn't fit the mold? You'll have whispers behind your back. Let them whisper, Thomas replied firmly. He could feel his resolve strengthening with each word. Yet he also sensed the weight of societal expectations pressing down on him. Meanwhile, not all reactions were negative. At the local church gathering that Sunday, several women approached Annabelle with curiosity and admiration. I heard you ride bareback, one woman exclaimed, her eyes wide with excitement. That takes real guts. I wish I had your spirit. Annabelle smiled brightly, appreciating their kindness. It's all about embracing who you are, she replied warmly, glad to find allies among those who admired her adventurous nature. However, there remained others who disapproved of her strong personality. During a particularly tense moment at a community meeting discussing ranch matters, old Mr. Henderson frowned as he spoke up. A woman's place is in supporting her husband, quietly tending to home and hearth, he said gruffly. We don't need distractions or drama from someone who thinks she can take on the world. Maybe it's time for a change, shouted another neighbor, standing up for Annabelle. She's showing us what it means to be brave and true to oneself. It's inspiring. Thomas observed these exchanges closely, feeling torn between wanting to defend Annabelle and recognizing that not everyone would understand her spirit or their bond. In moments like these, he realized how deeply rooted traditions could be. They were both protective and limiting. Navigating this new landscape became part of their journey together, adapting to community reactions while remaining true to themselves. With each challenge they faced, from neighbors' judgments or praises alike, Thomas found himself more committed to Annabelle than ever before. She had opened his heart to possibilities beyond societal norms. He was determined to support her as fiercely as she inspired him. As they walked hand in hand back to the ranch after another long day filled with mixed reactions from their neighbors, Thomas knew they were embarking on something transformative, not just for themselves but for those around them as well. Together they would redefine what love meant in their world. The tranquility of the ranch was suddenly disrupted one crisp morning when a massive storm swept through the area, dark clouds looming ominously overhead. Thunder rumbled in the distance like a warning bell, sending the cattle into a frenzy. Thomas rushed outside, heart pounding, to assess the situation while Annabelle quickly followed, her eyes wide with concern. Thomas, she shouted, her voice carried by the rising wind. The cattle are going to break out if we don't calm them down. Teaching Annabelle how to handle ranch duties had been a source of pride for Thomas, but at that moment he realized they were facing a real test of their teamwork and resolve. We need to get them into the barn before the storm hits hard, he urged, glancing at the sky. Let's do it, she replied, determination vibrant in her tone. With practiced efficiency, they began driving the cattle toward the barn, Annabelle leading from one side while Thomas held the front. Each time a cow veered off course, Annabelle skillfully maneuvered her horse to redirect it back into line. They communicated with quick shouts and hand signals. There was no hesitation between them. But just as they neared the barn entrance, an unexpected bolt of lightning cracked across the sky, followed by a deafening clap of thunder. The herd surged forward in panic, creating chaos in moments as animals dashed away from the barn entrance and scattered in different directions. Stay together, Thomas yelled over the noise, his heart racing as adrenaline surged through him. Annabelle's presence was a grounding force amid the storm's fury. He knew they couldn't let fear seize them. Circle around. We can't let any escape. Annabelle called back, her voice steady and clear as she took charge. In moments like these, Thomas saw her true strength shining through as she adapted swiftly to the crisis. Working in tandem, they forged paths through the stamping hooves and frantic movements of cattle, gently guiding them both towards safety and away from danger. Annabelle displayed remarkable coordination and confidence as she deftly maneuvered her horse among the frightened herd. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they managed to coax the last straggling cow into the barn just as raindrops began pelting down heavily. They moved inside, breathless but triumphant amidst the sound of the rain battering against the barn roof. As they leaned against the wooden beams for support, panting from the exertion, Thomas turned to Annabelle and tossed her a grateful look. You were incredible out there, he said sincerely. You weren't too shabby yourself, she replied with a grin, brushing wet hair from her face. In that moment of shared victory and relief, Thomas realized how perfectly they complemented each other, boldness meeting bravery in harmony. Facing danger together not only tested their limits but deepened their bond and trust in each other. The storm raged on outside, but within that barn filled with content cattle and warmth from their shared experience, Thomas understood that they were stronger together than apart. They were partners now, unconventional but perfectly matched and ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead on their journey together. As the storm settled into a gentle rain, Thomas found himself sitting on the porch observing Annabelle as she cleaned and organized their tools after the chaotic cattle drive. Her focus was unwavering, her movements infused with purpose. In that moment, he felt a wave of admiration wash over him, stirring something deep within his heart. He had come to cherish her adventurous spirit, the very thing that had once unsettled him. The memories of their stormy day together played back in his mind like a vivid reel. During the chaos, he had witnessed not just Annabelle's bravery but how seamlessly they worked together as a team. It struck him now that it wasn't just her skills he admired, it was her essence, the way she approached life with courage and passion. Sitting there, Thomas began to confront the internal struggle he had been grappling with since Annabelle's arrival. The expectations he'd clung to, ideas about the kind of partner he thought he needed, felt increasingly hollow against the vibrant reality of who Annabelle was. She was everything he had never known he wanted, strong, spirited, and unapologetically herself. A deep sense of clarity washed over him as he watched her wipe her brow and smile at a job well done. The fire in her eyes ignited something in him as well. It was a longing not merely for companionship, but for a partner capable of challenging him and expanding his horizons. This realization drew parallels to his own existence. He had been living within a safe bubble constructed from tradition and expectations. "Annabelle," he called out, standing up to close the distance between them. She looked up, curiosity sparkling in her eyes. "Hey there, what's on your mind?" she asked cheerfully. "I've been thinking about us," he replied hesitantly, still feeling the weight of his admission. "About what it means to be together." A moment of silence hung between them before she responded with a soft smile. "What do you mean?" He took a deep breath, summoning courage akin to what she displayed every day. "I've realized that I crave your bold spirit more than I ever wanted compliance or obedience," he said earnestly. "It's your strength that inspires me and makes me want to be a better man." Her expression shifted from curiosity to something deeper, understanding mixed with joy. Thomas could see the fire inside her ignite even brighter at his words. "You've shown me that love doesn't need to fit into society's mold," he continued, feeling his resolve strengthen. "I want to embrace this life we're building together, all its challenges and adventures." Annabelle stepped closer to him, her eyes glistening like stars against the dark backdrop of the evening sky. "You know you don't have to walk this road alone anymore," she said softly. "We're partners in this life." In that pivotal moment, as their hands intertwined under the fading light, Thomas felt his heart fully accepting this new path together, one defined by adventure, courage, and profound love beyond societal expectations. He knew they were destined for a life richer than either could have imagined alone, a true partnership where each day would be an adventure waiting to unfold. With the soft glow of the setting sun casting a golden hue over their ranch, Thomas and Annabelle stood hand in hand, savoring the quiet after the storm. The air was fresh and fragrant, carrying the promise of new beginnings and adventures that lay ahead. As they watched the cattle grazing peacefully in the distance, Thomas felt an overwhelming sense of contentment wash over him. "Look at them," Annabelle said, her eyes sparkling with joy. "They seem so much more relaxed now." "They do," he agreed, turning to meet her gaze. "Just like us." In that moment, Thomas recognized how far they had come together. It was not merely about being husband and wife, their relationship had evolved into a true partnership. He admired how Annabelle's strength and bravery had opened doors to possibilities he had never dared to consider. She had awakened a spirit of adventure within him that seamlessly blended with love and respect. "Do you remember when we first met again?" Annabelle asked with a teasing smile. "You were so sure I would fit into some neat little box. Look at me now." He chuckled, recalling his initial expectations. "I was wrong, and I'm grateful for that." The sincerity in his voice hung between them like a delicate promise. "You've shown me what it means to live authentically, to embrace every part of who we are." Annabelle squeezed his hand, her expression softening. "And you've made me feel understood and accepted for exactly who I am." As they shared this moment of connection, Thomas felt a rush of excitement for their future. He envisioned days spent exploring the rugged hills, nights around campfires sharing dreams beneath the stars, and challenges that would only strengthen their bond further. Together they would face both joys and obstacles alike, an adventure worth pursuing hand in hand. "Let's make a pact," he said suddenly, his heart racing at the thought of all that lay ahead. "No matter what happens, we promise to support each other, to chase every dream together." Annabelle nodded enthusiastically, her eyes shining brightly with agreement. "Absolutely. Together we can take on anything." As they stood there in unity under the vast sky of possibilities, Thomas embraced Annabelle's true nature fully. The wild spirit he once found bewildering was now the essence of his happiness. She had become his partner in every sense of the word, challenging him while making him feel alive. In that heartwarming resolution, they sealed their commitment not only as husband and wife but as explorers of life's journeys together, ready for whatever adventures awaited them on the horizon. With laughter ringing out with each promise made, Thomas felt certain love was not about conformity but rather embracing everything that made them uniquely themselves. Their path would be defined by courage and authenticity, a journey filled with limitless potential and boundless joy as they embarked together into the sunset of their lives.